Hello everybody, I'm Bill Hammond and I actually paid to see this. And welcome back to this year's Oscar Blitz, where I break down every category and every nominee at the 96 Academy Awards. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched, liked, or shared the last video so far, and remember to bookmark actuallypaid.com to keep up with this year's festivities. For this week's video, I'll be taking a look at visual effects, a somewhat divisive category each year for two main reasons. One, it's rarely an open contest. Usually there's some effects-driven film like Avatar, that's also even nominated for Best Picture, that usually renders the entire process moot. That's not the case this year, as the delay for Dune Part 2 into 2024 basically blew the doors wide open this go-round. Second is that there are many different camps for fans when it comes to the proper judging criteria for the visual effects prize, particularly whether the focus should be on digital or practical effects, and just how realistic they should look. For me personally, I know the definition of the term visual effects implies something outside of an on-set live-action shot, but I still prefer something done with practical movie tricks rather than pure CGI. And on the whole, I do want whatever effects are in the shot to look as realistic and lifelike as possible. I don't want to feel like I'm watching a cartoon, because I can just go watch cartoons. There are exceptions, of course, including one of this year's nominees, but that's basically my default setting. If you disagree, awesome, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Write down in the comments below. For now though, let's dig into this year's candidates. The Creator, Jay Cooper, Ian Cumley, Andrew Roberts, and Neil Corbould. I make no secret that I didn't care for this film. I even included it in the worst trailer in the World Series last year, because in all honesty, in the wake of the SAG and Writers Guild strikes, where AI-generated content was a major issue, how are you seriously going to release a sci-fi film where the AI are the good guys? But setting that aside, there are some decent effects here. Mostly for me, it comes down to the non-humanoid robots. The police drones and the running bomb were really cool designs, and they look like they were really there. Also, the Nomad scanning beam is particularly imposing. Like, you kinda got chills looking at that. Apart from that though, most everything looked fake as hell, especially the holes in the heads of the androids. We're meant to be super impressed that the camera can see through them, but it did nothing for me other than to remind me that most of the plotting in this film is almost completely empty-headed. See what I did there? Godzilla Minus One. Takashi Yamazaki, Kyoko Shibuya, Masakai Takahashi, and Tatsuji Nojima. This is very impressive work. Godzilla's been around for over 6 decades, and he's never looked this real and this threatening. The design and compositing of everyone's favorite nuclear lizard has never been better, and it's even more awe-inspiring when you remember that Yamazaki, who also wrote and directed the film, did the entire project for less than $15 million. I know VFX artists are often overworked and underpaid, and I don't want to minimize that, but this was the budget for the whole film, not just this department, which tells me that Yamazaki's team were just that dedicated to making the best version of Godzilla they possibly could, and it looks spectacular, especially in the black and white re-release that came out a few weeks ago. Some of the other effects aren't quite as good, particularly the train sequence, but Godzilla's the main event here, that's what counts, and he looks beyond anything we could have imagined. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Stefan Soretti, Alexis Wasbrot, Guy Williams, and Theo Bialik. This is the exception I mentioned earlier. Guardians of the Galaxy has always been a lighter, sillier affair, with a lot of slapstick humor and cartoonish plotting, so a more animated aesthetic is appropriate. It leads to a ton of imaginative sequences, and honestly, if you're expecting hardcore reality from a talking tree, I don't know what to tell you. For this final installment, however, the quality of the effects is ramped up significantly, to the point that Rocket's flashbacks and backstory often make you develop an even stronger emotional attachment to the character because of how convincing his model is. It still fits the motif, but there's just enough earnestness behind it to make it credible. In an age where Marvel is continuing to phone in their visuals, this is a rare standout. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Alex Woodka, Simone Coco, Jeff Sutherland, and Neil Corbould. Oh, hi, Neil. Good to see you again. Congrats on multiple nominations. Anyway, the crux of Mission Impossible's FX portfolio is in the stuff you don't notice more than the stuff you do. The car chase around Rome is a prime example. The more real it looks with Tom Cruise inside the car, the more you engage with the effects whizzing by on the periphery. This is also true for the cliff-hanging train scene in the climax. That really does look like a train about to fall off the collapsing bridge. But the biggest achievement of all is in the subtle touches. If you saw Avatar in theaters last year, then before the feature, you most likely saw a behind-the-scenes vignette where they filmed the huge motorcycle cliff jump stunt with Tom Cruise. When you see the finished product, you know to look for the things that have been composited out. But if you're just a casual viewer, none of these changes is really noticeable. That's the real movie magic here. We know Cruise did the stunt, we saw how he did it, and then when the movie came out, we saw how they finessed it visually. If you're going to do digital effects in action movies, that's how they should be done, to enhance a living moment, not created out of whole cloth. Napoleon, Charlie Henley, Luke Ewan, Martin Fenouillet, Simone Coco, and Neil Corbould. Okay, both Simone and Neil are back for this one. Seriously, are there only like 10 VFX supervisors working in Hollywood right now? It's a little weird. Anyway, of the 5 nominees, and the 3 for which Corbould could win, this is the least impressive. It's not that the effects are bad per se, just unremarkable. The battle scenes have all the standards we've come to expect in war epics, from CGI fodder soldiers to explosions to blood spatter. It gets the job done, but it's nothing special. And to be fair, the backgrounds of Egypt and the Sphinx were just awful. Honestly, the most memorable effect in the entire film is when Napoleon leads the siege of Toulon and his horse goes kaboom thanks to a cannonball. After that, in similar fashion, it's when a hole gets blown in his hat by a bullet at Waterloo. What I'm saying is that if there's not some ultra close-up artillery damage, it doesn't really register with me. I don't know what that implies about me, but there you go. So after all that, here's how I rank the nominees. In 5th place is Napoleon. Like I said, the effects are fine, but not all that memorable. 4th place goes to The Creator, which had some inspired designs, but far more that were uninspired. 3rd place, appropriately enough, goes to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. 2nd place, possibly inappropriately enough, goes to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And if I had an Academy vote, it would go to Godzilla -1 for giving us the most badass looking version of the monster we've ever seen on a comparative micro budget to the rest of the field. That's all for this week, folks. Be sure to keep it locked on the blog, actuallypaid.com, for more reviews, features, and breakdowns during this year's Blitz, including a comprehensive ranking of all 10 films that were shortlisted in this category. I'll be back next week with another video analysis in the all-important and controversial contest of Best Director. Until then, I'm Bill Hammond. I actually paid to see this.